Welcome back. It's right now 6:15. 50 years ago today, the Apollo 11 astronauts launched from Florida's Kennedy Space Center on a historic mission to become the first in history to walk on the moon.
That's right. CBS's Chris Martinez joins us live at Kennedy Space Center this morning on Merritt Island. And Chris, that groundbreaking space flight helped, of course, catapult our nation into the future.
It did, Phil and Dawn, and thousands of people will be here today throughout the Kennedy Space Center to celebrate that moon milestone as they look back on that very historic space flight that launched the space program to new heights.
At NASA's Kennedy Space Center, this exhibit celebrating the Apollo 11 mission is drawing crowds from around the globe, 50 years after the spaceflight captivated the world.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 42 minutes past the hour.
The Apollo 11 mission launched from Florida on July 16, 1969 at 9:32 a.m. 4 days later, the spacecraft's crew of Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins successfully landed on the moon, taking man's first steps on the lunar surface.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I think the most rewarding part of Apollo 11 was having it to be the major event in my life, which changed my life entirely.
From launch to return, the Apollo 11 mission lasted 8 days. But before the flight to space could even happen, scientists and engineers here on Earth had to figure out how to pull off the impossible.
That rocket has Explorer 1 on the top of it.
John Cassani was part of the team charged with designing rockets capable of getting a spacecraft to the moon. After the mission's success, he says the so-called Apollo effect led to a surge of interest in engineering and space.
And that's the thing that really enabled the whole space exploration program to move forward after that. The fact that we had to fill the pipeline with the kind of talent and people, the interest in what was required.
That one small step for man, paving the way for decades of new missions to the final frontier.
And that includes new missions to the moon called the Orion program. NASA hoping to hold their first test flight for Orion by the end of next year, with plans on sending astronauts back to the moon in 2024. Don, Phil, back to you.
All right, thank you, Chris. I remember space rocks were for sale on keychains for only a dime.
Did you get one?
At the dime store? Yes, I did. Well, astronauts will soon be able to go back to the moon safely.
2, 1, ignition.
Earlier this month, Action News Jax brought you this NASA launch of the Orion capsule from Cape Canaveral. The purpose was to test its emergency abort system. The system gets astronauts safely off that rocket just in case there's some type of malfunction during liftoff. The Orion capsule is set to take astronauts to the moon in 2024. To find more stories, video, and those great photo galleries on the Apollo 11 mission to the moon, you can visit actionnewsjax.com.